Can you guys hear me?
A little louder.
How about now?
Good.
Good. Okay. I assume we're ready to go. I'm going to open this meeting up at 10:01 Pacific time on October 30th. This is our formal session for Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. And I'd like to ask Commissioner King to lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to our calendar session. Is there any changes to be made?
None for me.
No.
Commissioner Sterrett?
No.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, we have one in the audience. Did any more fill out cards for public comment?
I would like to, but I'm waiting in line.
We have one more waiting in line.
Okay. First, I guess I'd like to acknowledge the public comments that were put into the packet during this week. Make sure that everybody's seen those. And then I go ahead and call on John Anderson to come up and name and address, please.
Yes, you can.
Yes, my name is John S. Anderson. Address is 1625 Southeast Kent Street, McMinnville, Oregon.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want my address now?
No, you can go ahead and give your public comment. Your public comment.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, good morning, Yamhill County. I'm a McMinnville resident. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. Speaking to you this morning about just my heavy heart. Gonna be concerned and disappointed. And you're watching because election integrity teeters before November 4th. I've noticed that there are some ballot security envelope issues. I have forwarded, a couple of emails to various places showing all of this. I would say that as a vet, I've guarded secret material in opaque, tamper-proof envelopes. That's, and this fails. These envelopes fail even confidential standards. ORS 254.470 demands secrecy. And I have to ask, where is the answer to secret here? I'm left wondering, have we abandoned our duty? Because, my video is now on X at Irish Viking 76. Proof that I can't unsee. The SOS dismissed it, suggesting drop boxes, but McMinnville's mail, goes to Portland for sorting. Did they miss the hands, the machines that could see our choices? Our Portland postal, employees, are they election employees for Yamhill County? Under ORS 254.470, county clerks ensure secrecy with bipartisan teams. Post delivery, yet USPS workers in Portland aren't election employees. Per law, they're just transporters, not accountable under ORS 206.010 or 254.470. This erodes trust. I would say 68% of Americans fear fraud. in our elections. Oregon's mail-in system hangs by a thread is where I'm going with this. I tried delivering evidence to the sheriff when the doors were locked, despite, the telephone and everything else. I didn't get to file a report. So did they refuse, or, I didn't really get a quick answer to that. Their refusal citing SOS jurisdiction kind of feels like a betrayal. I thought they were actually there to uphold some of these laws. I rallied 20 plus groups to test some pictures on the internet to have people conduct tests of their own ballots, because what I was seeing, it couldn't just be a one-off. So my question here is, the campaigns promised justice, not deflection. I was misled, or was I? I mean, I heard nothing about evading duty when I was, electing these people to office. Anyhow, who checked them? My questions are, the tests show failure, especially with Portland sorting risk. Where the United States Postal Service non-election status leaves a custody gap. The News Register article claimed, folding them and having a hole in the envelope, but that was never anything that I had complained about. So I kind of felt there was an answer to something I didn't bring up. But anyhow, my sheriff visit stalled. I couldn't give a report. Seemed like nobody really had much interested. They shoved this off to the Secretary of State. And to you commissioners, I kind of want some, I'm not going to demand, I just want some answers. Who made this call? What was the reason? Who certified security? Who audited it? Investigate under ORS 206.010, hold the sheriff and the clerk accountable? I don't know. Since the USPS isn't election staff, who guards secrecy en route? I'm filing on part, in a court appeal sometime. I'm going to go to the circuit court with it, but I'm speaking now because I've seen secure systems that failed. And I fear fraud. I fear coercion and leaks. And due to this flaw, I don't know what to do with it. I leave it with you because I voted for voter integrity. And I need to know if we're going to reclaim it. That's the end of my time, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Up next, we have Melody McMaster. Please come on up and name and address, please.
Hello, Melody McMaster, Newburgh, Oregon. Hopefully you're all having a great day. Here we go. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Melody McMaster. I've lived in Newburgh since 1981, graduated from George Fox University and taught at Gaston Elementary for over 30 years. Fun fact, there are 26,000 miles of rails to trails across the United States. These trails are enjoyed by people across the political spectrum and connect both urban communities and agricultural lands. Yet here in Yamhill County, we still don't have a completed trail. Here's the background for those who are not familiar. In 2017, the county purchased the rail corridor from Portland and Western Railroad, intending to build a trail that has since been called the Yamhilis Trail, named after the Yamhilis, or river people, the indigenous Kalapuya people who historically lived in this region. As plans moved forward, neighbors and landowners raised concerns about how the trail could affect farms, concerns I empathize with fully. Farmers worried about crop damage or theft, liability if someone is injured near farmland, disruption to farm operations, and loss of privacy. These concerns went to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, which ensures the county follows the law. Here's the problem. Over several years, LUBA repeatedly found that the county did not follow the correct legal process. Each time LUBA said, go back and fix this. By issuing a remand order, meaning LUBA specified to the county what corrections were required. LUBA did not say this project cannot happen. Approvals by the county were given without properly evaluating farm impacts, without the required conditional use permit, and without complying with zoning laws. Instead of following the rules, the county kept moving forward, signing contracts and approving work before correcting the legal problems. The result, delays, repeated court remands, legal fees, and still no trail for the community. But here's the good news. Other Rails to Trails projects show that farmers' concerns can be addressed while benefiting everyone. The Banks Vernonia Trail uses fencing, signage, and designated crossing to protect farmland while generating up to $1.4 million annually for local businesses and jobs. Trails in Wisconsin and Minnesota allow farmers to lease trail-adjacent parking and build farm stands, creating extra income while enhancing tourism and recreation. Studies show trails increase property values, tourism, and community health, benefiting farmers, residents, and the local economy alike. Examples of this, the Hiawatha Trail in Idaho, annual impact over $3 million, 49 jobs, and $1.1 million in income. Estimated $8 million in regional tourism spending. The Columbia River Gorge Bike Trails, annual visitor spending, $21.1 million, supports 273 jobs and $5.8 million in earnings. When they finish another key part of the trail, it's projected to bring in an extra $6.3 million after it's completed. Even in rural Eastern Oregon, where they have the Joseph Branch Railroad Trail, economic benefit between $85,000 and $427,000 annually for these communities. So, key points for action: the county needs to follow the law, comply fully with LUBA directives, and use land use standards. No shortcuts. Mitigate farmers' concerns. Use fencing, signage, and safety measures to protect farms and ensure privacy. Talk to the farmers who own land adjacent to the trail. I've been told this is too late to do. That means that people never change their mind. I say give it a chance. Deliver benefits. Trails create jobs, attract tourists, support local businesses, and strengthen our community. Commissioners, the Yamhill Trail, Yamhill Trail is more than a path. It's an opportunity for economic growth, recreation, and community pride. As I've said before, this is your opportunity to leave a legacy and benefit the entire community for generations to come. If you sell this land, only a few people will benefit, but not nearly as much as the entire community could. The county must stop cutting corners, respect the farmers, and finally do what LUBA has been telling you to do. Sometimes you need to spend money to make money. Invest in this project, and the people, businesses, and Yamhill County will reap the benefits for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Melody. Is there any other public comments in the audience?
No.
Is there any online? Raise your virtual hand. Is there any? I can't see it.
No.
Okay, we're going to move on then to E, department updates. There is none. F is work session. We're joined by Cynthia, our transit manager. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning. Morning. share the presentation here. Hold on. Okay. All right. Can you see that online?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner Chair Johnston and commissioners and staff and public. I do want to mention before I start that Brandon Tross from City of Lafayette is here. He serves on our Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee. And so if you have questions at the end regarding some of the discussions they've had, then he'd be happy to join me. So my goal, this may not be your goal, but my goal for this meeting work session is that if you agree with the Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee recommendation, that you'll approve and allow Yamhill County Transit to move forward with a broad-based public outreach effort, and then present the low fare option scenario. And in conjunction with that, we have been working for quite some time on some service adjustments, and we would like to take all of that out to the public at the same time and gather feedback. The committee's recommendation was continue fareless until the public outreach is complete. I thought it would be good because this has been a longer road, it always is, than you really originally think it's going to be. So I think it's good to remember how we got here. So I'm going to shine a light on 7 key steps that Yamhill County Transit has taken to get to this point. Number 1, and I don't want to forget about it, is the transit development plan. As I was preparing for this, I was reading through it and I realized, there's a lot of relevant and good information that still stands in the plan, even though it was developed in 2018, which is quite a few years now. But there's a lot of good information and there was a lot of public outreach, broad-based, that went on during that process. And there's information and recommendations regarding fares and local funding option scenarios. Number 2, this board tasked the Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee with developing a new fare policy. And then when COVID hit, it was just a logical time that we would say, okay, we will go fareless and look into the idea of different options for funding scenarios. For fare collection, excuse me. 3, the fare, we conducted, I call it more of a report or a white paper, the Fare Free Report in 2023. And it looked at the pros and cons of a fareless system and also some estimates of cost to collect fares. Number 4, near the end of that process, we focused on several questions to the leadership within Yamhill County. So it went to, I'll touch on that later, but it was to basically answer the question, fare, should we charge a fare or should we not charge a fare? And then 5, which I haven't shared much with this group about this, but I was part of a broader committee that looked at fare collection systems and vendors, and it was part of Clackamas County. There's 5 or 6 other transit agencies, and we looked at a wide variety of vendors, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. Number 6, then we came to this group, I think it was February, with a work session, and shared kind of the milestones of where we were, and the goal then was to talk about going out to public outreach, but then there were some questions we needed to follow up. And then 7, we have a recommendation from Yamhill County Transit Advisory Committee to conduct this public outreach using the low fare scenario. So those are the things I'm going to touch on, and it sounds long, but I think it will be fairly succinct if I can not talk too much. So step 1 was the transit development plan. And as I was reading through it, I realized this is actually the recommendation that came out of the plan: to sell fares at more locations, use an electronic fare system, raise fares in the future, especially once bus stop signs are installed, increase fares for longer distance in inner city, and have annual regular increases to account for inflation, reduce fares for older adults, people with disabilities, veterans, et cetera, develop a fare pass program with partners, and have some fare reciprocity between connecting agencies. And I will just mention, this may be not the appropriate time, but pre-COVID and the time that we were fareless, Yamhill County Transit actually had a fairly strong fare recovery rate. We were at like 16% of our overall costs were fare covered that. That was higher than most of our peers. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in a bit. This is just a reminder of what our fares were prior to being fareless and prior to COVID. It's a pretty simple system. We had fixed route was $1.25, dial ride was $1.75, paratransit $2.50. You get a single day pass for $2.50. You get a book of 10 day passes for $18. And unlimited pass was $35 for fixed route and $40 for dial ride. So number 3 was that this fare report that we worked on. And I just want to put a spotlight on kind of the most important element of this, which was to look at like, what would the cost be to collect the fare. I didn't include in this slide the one-time or initial costs, but this was the estimate for if you had a mobile phone and fare box type of an option where you're still taking some cash, but you're shifting people to more of an electronic system, and you have partnership programs, that the low estimate for what it would cost us is about $51,000, and the high estimate was as high as $104,000. I think the high estimate included a little more marketing money than what we probably would spend, so it might actually be that high now after looking at it today versus in 2023. So number 4, near the end of the fare free process, we did a fairly simple survey monkey and sent it out to all the cities, the mayors, the city councilors, the managers, key staff, Grand Run Tribal Council, you commissioners received it also, and just asked a lot of very questions to get people to determine whether leadership really wanted fares or they really wanted to charge fares or not charge fares. And it was pretty clear that 70% of the leaders wanted to return to a paid fare system. There was general support for a low fare or a no fare or low income for residents. There was mixed support about doing different rates for different types of service. And there was very limited support for a flat fare for all riders. And that was a flat fare, making it so that every single thing was the same price. You just had a single flat fare. There was strong support for implementing a new fare technology to help collection make it easier. Step 5. This is the part where I haven't shared a lot of information. I've talked a little bit with the committee about this, I think, over the last year or so. But this group of smaller transit agencies had looked at a lot of different vendors, suppliers for electronic mobile ticketing. And the city, Sandy Area of Transit, they actually wrote a plan called the Fare Collection Modernization Plan, and looked at mobile ticketing, standalone, is it called SaaS system? Is that how you say it? Or do you spell it out? I don't know. Anyway, and also even adopting TriMet's Hop Pass. So we had meetings with them to see what it would cost if we actually adopted TriMet's Hop system. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a mobile ticketing system that's a little bit fancy that TriMet uses. There were over 21 different vendor suppliers, and we looked at all sorts of different functions, 23 different functions, such as web-facing tools, back office, digital wallet, how it takes credit and debit, discounted fares, group passes, the whole gamut. And in the end, the partner recommendation was to engage in Cubic and acquire the UMO service, subscription service, which that's a little flyer about UMO, and you can pay on your phone. You have just QR codes when you first get onto the bus, and it can handle like all the different types of fare programs that we would have. And it was one of the more reasonable ones. A lot of times they will take a percentage of your fare revenue. This one is based on how many vehicles you have. We were looking at trying to do a joint procurement where all the small agencies would come together and they'd give us a better price with all of our buses. But I think in the end, we kind of have to have our own agreement. So we're still finalizing that. Number 6 was just when we came to you in February, we basically shared what had happened, all the different steps, the things that we've gone through, and to get your approval to go to public outreach. And really, you had asked us two questions. One was two follow-up questions. You wanted some analysis on the ridership and revenue impacts of both the high and the low fare scenario. And then requested some information about unique riders or number of people actually served on the system, not just rides, because transit agencies track ridership by how many people cross the threshold of the bus, you know, so it could be the same person crossing the threshold 10 times a day, but it isn't by people. That's not how we typically track ridership. So since our last session, I worked with Nelson Nygaard as a consulting company that does all things transit related. And one of their team members who that's all they do is an analysis for small, medium, and large transit agencies when they're making a fare change. They looked at both of those scenarios, and I don't know if you recall this is just the low fare, but the high fare scenario is essentially double the price of what the low fare is. So I didn't include that in here. But the low fare scenario includes two types of day tickets. You have a local ticket. If you purchase it within Yamhill County, it's $2. Whereas if you took a one-way trip without the day tickets, $1 per trip. If you purchase it out of county, meaning you're riding from, say, Tigard in, then it's $5 for a day ticket. If you did a one-way trip, it's $2.50. There's two types of dial-a-ride fares. There's an ADA, which is the American with Disability Act service that is required by transit agencies. And of course, the people have to meet the qualifications for that. And the day ticket for that is $4. And then if you did a one-way trip, it's $1. General public dial-a-ride is kind of considered it more of a premium service because it's anybody can use it, young, old, doesn't matter. And it's pretty much a door-to-door service. And so the idea in this scenario is that we treat it more like a premium service and get folks, try to shift people more to the fixed routes and to some new services that were grant funded, such as like shuttles that will take people to shopping shuttle or a medical shuttle, that type of thing. So that's why the price is high. It would be $10 for a one-way, kind of more in line with what an Uber is, although it doesn't operate exactly like an Uber because we don't have the app that is real time, but it is still a premium service. So it also includes, the low fare scenario includes a very inexpensive local monthly pass, $10. The reason that's so low is really just because we want local folks to be able to afford it and to get around. And the out-of-county monthly pass is $38. General public dial-a-ride obviously is the most expensive at $75 a month, and then ADA pass would be $38 a month. The idea is that we would be collecting more for all of our routes that are longer and people coming a lot further, and that the local folks would not have to pay quite as much. And then there's partnership program. Most likely would be some version of a reduced day ticket, or it will be an annual pass that's kind of geared more to that agency. That has not worked out yet, and it's not in the numbers. So the numbers that we have, I think, are a little bit conservative because we will have partnership programs on top of the regular ridership. So the Nelson Nygaard staff, who did kind of some modeling and looked at the fare revenue options based on the high and the low fare scenario, they evaluated it to determine the impact on ridership and revenue. And the ridership is elastic. It's relative to fares. Typically, if you increase fare, ridership decreases. If you decrease decrease fare, did I say that backwards? Yeah, if you decrease fares, ridership increases. So it changes by the amount of revenue generated, changes with it depending on what you charge in a fare. The overall impact to ridership is usually determined by, they looked at existing ridership, existing revenue, well, pre-COVID, the average fare paid per boarding, the percent change in fares, and then they looked at industry standard elasticity factors. And they determined that we could collect between 176,000 to 237,000 a year based on our current ridership. So just to put this in context, in 2019, pre-COVID, we collected about 258,000 in revenue, and ridership was around 250, kind of between 250 and 280,000 pre-COVID. Currently, 2024, we have about 203,000. It does seem like it's continuing to increase. We're fareless right now also. So their determination was that re-implementing the fares, it would, if we get with the low fare scenario, we would collect 176,000 and ridership would decrease by 29%. They think it would probably stabilize there. I think this is a conservative number and you would probably increase over time. But usually they say, you know, it'll decrease for a while and then it kind of comes back up again after a year to 18 months. Let's see what else. And then, you know, we are installing, we did finally get almost, I think we have all of our permits now for the real bus stop signs. So having bus stop signs is an important factor. Now, we do have temporary signs out there, but I still think it will help improve the situation if we have actual bus stop signs in all the locations. So this was a question that Commissioner Johnson had. And I don't really like answering this question, but because I don't think it covers everything, but we did our best. So dial-a-ride is easy. We know we have about 200, well, we know, we can look and see who's riding. We have the actual names and addresses. There's 250 unique riders in our dial-a-ride system, general public and ADA. That is growing. Our applications for paratransit has kind of tripled over the last month or two. So that number is growing. Fixed routes, how they came up with this number was basically looking at we did an onboard survey back during the time of the transit development plan. So we wrote the folks that were doing the survey wrote at least every trip. They didn't ride every trip every single day, all day long, but they wrote every single trip that we have, weekday, Saturday. And it's the best sampling that we have. And it gathered data on first-time riders, riders that only ride maybe once a month or 2 to 4 days a week or 5 days a week. So all of those percentages were calculated into this formula. Obviously, ridership is a dynamic number. It's constantly changing. You may have somebody whose car broke down, they ride the bus for a month and they never ride again. You may have somebody who decides they're going to sell their car and they ride every day. You know, it's just an ever-changing number. And it's why transit agencies don't attempt to have this number. We use rides and how many people actually board the bus. Now with the new electronic system, I think you'll have a much better number because if most people use the electronic system, then you're going to know that they've signed on. Every time they, use their phone, you're going to have that data. So you will actually have a much better number to see how many people, true humans, are riding the bus. This may be a scary number to some, I don't know, but if you take our total budget that we spend with our service provider and divide it by the 2,050, it's about $1,700 per person per year or $142 a month. If you take it for all of our costs except the major capital, and that does include a lot of one-time smaller capital projects, it's $2,700 per person or $224 a month. I think this is a conservative number. One of the consultants came up with a number closer to like 6,000, but we did the best we could. And I'm happy to share the charging, with you if you really want to have that. I do think there's a lot of other social service types of services out there that probably spend more than $140 to $224 a month on older adults, people with disabilities, and things like that. Obviously, I believe there's a lot more to a transit system than ridership is extremely important, don't get me wrong, but having a organization with 50 living wage jobs and all of the work, having transit agency in the community and the money we spend in the community because you have a transit agency, there's a lot of economic development, and I could go on, but I'm not going to. So I think we're almost near the end. Number 7, County Transit Advisory Committee recommendation for you today, is that they're recommending that the Board of Commissioners move forward with the public outreach and gather input on this low fare policy option, and that we continue to be fareless while that outreach is happening until you make your final decision. And then they also support the effort that we can gather input on the service adjustments that have been working on. I'll give you one example of one of the service adjustments, because I think even though we're looking at trying to reduce our overall annual hours, in some ways, we're actually making improvements. So in our, and we're following the goals of the transit plan, but service to Salem, for example, I think currently we have 5 trips that go to West Salem. And the goal was to go to downtown Salem. So we have been looking at changing the number of trips we make, but going all the way to downtown Salem. And then making connections with, like, for example, the new pilot projects that's going to have service between, actually all the way from Eugene, University of Oregon, to Hillsborough. But our piece of it is from Junction City to McMinnville. And so making better connections with some of our other services out there. So I think in some ways, that's just one example. There's quite a few improvements, even though the service hours will be less, which will save us money and keep us within the budget limits. So we're almost at the end. The next step is really we'll finalize our outreach plan, which is very comprehensive, and it'll include surveys and focus groups and stakeholder outreach and even, I think, a little broader than even what we did in the transit development plan, but more focused. And then I'm waiting on a proposal from our service provider, TransDev, and hopefully it will be within the budget limitation that I've given them, so that either we'll continue that contract with them or possibly we have to go out for a request for proposal. But either way, we're going to need to make the service adjustment. So it doesn't, necessarily depend on whatever price that we receive from TransDev. And I will keep all of you and Yamaha County Transit Advisory Committee informed. And if you want me to bring back the actual outreach plan and all the service adjustments and how that will be presented to the public, then I can bring it here and you could approve that or just see it. You just let me know how you want to handle that. Okay, so now, if you have any questions, because I went through that fairly fast, but.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Cynthia.
Mhm.
This has been a long time coming. Thanks for all your work.
Yeah.
Question about the per person subsidy. In other words, what does it cost for one person to ride for a year? And we are fairless. So what are we looking at? Did you say that was 2,700?
If
Per
you take
person?
our entire, like this year's operating budget, which includes kind of a lot of one-time consultants for like our Durham Lane and all of those costs, which I wouldn't really consider
No.
typical annual cost, that's the $2,700 a year. If you take just the amount we would pay to TransDev and they do our maintenance and our operations and our dispatch and all the operations, then it's the lower number of 17. Is that what I said? 1,700.
1,700. Okay.
Now, that's not how we calculate cost per ride, but yes, in this scenario, that's what we have come up with.
So cost per ride, you had that number also.
Do I have it with me? Because we break it down by type of service. So I can tell you generally in systems our size, we usually combine, like typically your door-to-door service is anywhere from $20 to $25 a ride, whereas your fixed route could be between 5 and 3 to 7, depending. And most smaller subs kind of combine all of that. I think ours is around $5 a ride, something like that, 5 to 6, depending on where ridership is.
When we've talked about this before, and I look at Sandy years ago, did that local jitney, and
Mhm.
we've got very expensive buses and very expensive labor and
Mhm.
upkeep and management, and now we have the new facility and
Mhm.
all that. And we look at $25 per person per ride. So if we look at folks who need dial-a-ride, and we know we don't have everything we need to be able to provide that to folks who are disabled or, the
Mhm.
elderly are having a hard time getting on the bus, that type of thing. An Uber, we know, isn't going to cost $25 if they're just going from here to there. So I just want to put out there what I've said in the past is that there are other options, which I know it's not popular for government to think in terms of using the private sector. I know you were
Mhm.
explaining some of the situations that make that untenable, but I think when you look at what it costs to get somebody from here to there, it's a lot of money. And a lot of times our buses obviously are not full. So just want that out there for the record.
So I would share something that just happened the other day. I got a call from a lady who lives in the city of Lafayette, and she's temporarily kind of at a situation where she can't ride the bus, she can't get to the bus stop. And I suggested, well, if you could get into the city limits of, Minville, then you can use ADA paratransit. It's pretty much a guaranteed ride from point A to point B. But she said she looked into Uber and it was $25 for her to go 5 miles. I said, well, that's weird. I said, I use it downtown Portland and it's not that much. But then I was talking to other folks and they said, well, because the demand, there's not as much demand, the price is higher because it's a basically dynamic pricing
Sure.
based on it. So I don't know that you could get a short ride for $25. I just would say that. And then I also think as far as subsidy, and I mentioned this before, and I could go on ad nauseum, but I won't. We subsidize every other mode of transportation significantly more than we subsidize transit. And there's proof to that. But it's all hidden. You pay state taxes, local taxes, federal taxes, all sorts of fees and things that support cars. And if you were trying to take the same analogy and say, okay, how much is your trip when you're driving alone based on what we spend on our roads and our parking and everything else, I bet you the number's higher than it is for transit. Because transit is just logic. If you have a vehicle that can carry 25 people and you have a car that carries 1 or 2, it's going to be more efficient to take people in a lot of people in a bigger vehicle, even when you include the capital costs for that. So if you ever really want to be a nerd, go to Victoria Transportation Institute policy. And that person has spent his entire life looking at economics and data and what everything costs. I mean, down to the nth degree. So I'd be happy to share information if anybody's interested in that, but.
Thank you.
The problem with that is we have to fill those buses to get that number to be sustainable. And right now we're not getting enough ridership to get those numbers down to where it should be reasonable. And for the Uber style, the reason Uber's so high right now is just because we're offering free transit, and I don't think that helps any. So it's not apples to apples if we're going to have that comparison. What I'd like to see right now, if Brandon's there, or Commissioner King, if he was at the meetings when the advisory committee was trying to discuss these issues and agree with the low fare. I just want just a rough overview on how the conversations went to get to where they're at for their recommendation.
Yeah, I'll invite Brandon up, but also just to piggyback on the Uber conversation, I think if Uber was a viable business in Yamhill County, it would be here. I don't think it needs the 250 unique riders that we have in order for that ridership to be here. I think that it's not an apples to apples comparison. We're a small spread out community where Portland, you can get an Uber in 5 minutes. So I just think that that's not a super fair comparison to make when we're talking about Dial-A-Ride. And obviously the Dial-A-Ride does need some work in order to get it to where it is. And I think my impression of the committee was really, the people that are on the committee are built up of riders, some city employees of McMinnville, Lafayette, city councilors in West Valley. And, their appetite really is for it to be an end of the staff and consultants who this is their career, is for it to stay fareless, but out of direction to the board. That is how they've landed on this low fare option, especially in a time where working families are having a hard time getting getting more and more fees. So talked about the transit bill, same type of thing. And the transit bill is really what is supporting this majority of the STIF plan with this that we get put in. I think it's a $5 million. Is that right?
Say that.
Our
How much
total
we get?
operating cost is somewhere
Well,
around
right
4 million.
now, it's about 5 million, and 90
Yeah.
some plus percent comes from state grants, federal grants, and other sources, and all of the combined local county pays around 500,000, and then cities and every other source is around another few 200,000. So
And-
really,
and-
for $700,000, you in this county contributed locally, you get 5.5 million. Actually, this year you get $9 million in
Right.
both services and capital, because we have 5 buses on order right now. That's rare. We don't usually, there's a whole
Yeah,
reason
so
for
for
that.
for the operating purposes, though, we're around that $5 million, and our general budget is around $500,000. So, the appetite really is about keeping the cost down as low as possible, either fareless or this low cost. Uber doesn't transport medical needs. And to sign a contract with Uber is extremely expensive for a municipality or a county. So I think that by the direction of this, and I'll let Brandon kind of chime in as somebody that's on that committee, speak on their part, but that was really my takeaway from their recommendation because of the direction of mayors, city councilors, and this board. Go ahead, Brandon.
Thank you, Commissioner King. Hello, Commissioner Starrett and Chair Johnston. So one of the things we looked at reinducing fares is we had a lot of discussion around dollar ride, and we saw, I hate to use this word, I don't want to use the word abuse, but I think people were using dollar ride when the dollar ride services should have went to people who actually needed it. We saw a lot of use for tourism in the wine area. And we were trying to say, okay, if we still want to capture these riders to use our services and move away from them using dollar ride to go about their tourism trips in the county, et cetera, how can we get them to still use services? So we looked at the low fare policy. We also, like Commissioner King had said, I think we've had fareless, now for 5 years. It's going to be pretty hard to get everybody back on track to paying the full fare. And while I know the low fare option isn't popular, I think at least for the short term, it's a good discussion to have when we go out to the community, because it'll take time to actually get to where, if we wanted to get to a higher fare option, it would at least smooth the process over. So, the people who are used to not paying for the past 5 years, they'll slowly but surely get into the habit of being able to pay. And then when we have to say, hey, we are going to have to raise this, 40 to 50%, there's at least an appetite that they've been paying for a while. And if they feel that service is there to continue using it, they would use it at that higher rate. But I think, at least from the sense of Lafayette, in the Carlton bus, I'm a user of the 44. I live in Newburgh and take it into work sometimes. I also take it up to Tigard when I'm going into Portland because I hate driving. But that's just from my personal standpoint. But talking to people in Lafayette, there is a lot of connections from Tigard, Sherwood, that actually go through Lafayette to McMinnville to work. Talking to those people on the bus, they don't mind paying a fare. They said, we'll pay a fare. We were used to it before, but it's going to be hard to pay the $2.50 fare right off the bat because we've just grown accustomed to having this free service for 5 years. So I think when you set that precedence for so long of having a free fare, going back into straight to the previous fare is going to take some time to get adjusting to. We did discuss a bigger need in Newburgh for service with the students. I talked to Cynthia and the committee about that there's a lot of students who were relying on the previous inner city route that's no longer there. So now they're having hard times getting to McMinnville if they don't drive, et cetera. So we talked about what it looks like for expanded service in Newburgh. I've been an advocate for Lafayette, we need more bus stops in Lafayette along Bridge. That's probably not a possibility right now because of some of the service reductions. So even my residents have to make do with having to walk a mile to a stop. And so we took all that into account for the totality of the system, not just for Lafayette, Newburgh, McMinnville. It's going to be hard to swallow, but I think easing into the low fare option, if the public outreach goes okay, will at least achieve, hopefully keeping riders on, shifting people from dollar ride for people who don't need it necessarily, shift them to the inner city buses or the local routes, and then also maintain an adequate level of service for the people who are expecting it.
Cindy,
Thank you.
is a way to track when you're dialing for a dial ride to get essentially their home address and ID or some sort. So what I'm getting at is that if they are from out of town staying at an Airbnb and they're using it for tourism purposes, now they have to, a little bit of a complicated system for one, and order it 24 hours in advance and to and from and so on. But is there a way that we could charge those people even more?
Well, essentially,
Or it's the medical,
oh, sorry.
essentially, so that the people who need it for medical reasons or can't walk that mile or so on.
Well,
you know,
essentially, that's what the low fare scenario is doing, because
Right.
we've always had ADA paratransit, which
Mhm.
is pretty much you have to get certified. It's typically older adults, people with disability. Isn't necessarily just because you have a disability. It's can you get to a bus stop?
Right.
But it's within the city limits of McMinnville because we're required to do it within 3/4 of a mile of our local fixed routes. So you still have need in Newburgh and other cities for dial-a-ride, but we don't have ADA paratransit. So general public dial-a-ride, the advantage to it is that we could, because it's a more of a premium service, we could prioritize people going to medical appointments and use them on general public. And we do have to get the person's address and name and where they're going. And so we do know all that. I don't know that there's that much abuse, really. I haven't seen a lot of that for tourists. And it's more people currently, actually because of COVID, some folks who used to ride the local fixed routes all the time switched to dial-a-ride because they were nervous about, the pandemic and all of the germs or whatever. And then they're like, wow, this is cool. I can get door to door. So they start calling, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to go to the doctor, but I'm going to have 5 trips
Sure.
a day, and like, okay. So we actually, if you've been to our website, see, we had to make a limit to how many on general public dial-a-ride they could take because we had some people taking a lot of trips. So this will be, if it's cost $10 to take a general public dial-a-ride, you're not going to have a lot of people wanting to spend $10 necessarily. So, but we don't want to ignore the folks who need rides. So obviously there's still a need for that.
Yeah.
But more will shift to the ADA, which is for the medical.
Yeah.
And then others will, hopefully we have sufficient local fixed routes and regular commuter routes that they can shift to that. So it's more about the dispatchers helping people get to the service that fits their needs the best. That's really.
On a phone call regarding substance use disorders, we had somebody who chimed in who said that there was no way to get a person who really wanted to get into recovery right then. And there was an option, and she called, and it was an Uber medical transport. I didn't know there was such a service, but she said it got that person to them, and I believe it was in Portland, from here to there, so that they could get into their secure residential recovery system. And it was at night. And so I think we need to look into what options exist because there's so much need. Not everybody has a car.
No.
If the gas tax goes up, it's going to be harder for folks to drive and like that.
I mean, that's what the coordinated plan is supposed to do. Supposed to have a list of all of the providers who do any kind of transportation in Yamaha County. So you guys adopted that in 2024. WellRide, I know, but they're maxed out.
Yep.
There's lots that I think the Wapato Shores does a lot of non-emergency medical, and they may operate in longer hours. I'm wondering if that's who it was. I haven't heard of the Uber more
I'll find out who.
medical type
Yeah,
of thing.
I'd not heard of it either.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
yeah. And also veterans, we've got,
Yes.
because that's been a real issue with folks who have to go from here to the hospital, the Veterans Hospital, and then they have to wait, and then they have to turn around and come back. So that's been an issue. We did have volunteers. I think that's always an issue when that's on hiatus, if you don't have someone who can take you to a medical appointment.
All right, thank you. So the one last thing that I'd like to make a comment about is just, I want to make sure that that dial-a-ride doesn't get lost in the conversation when we do our public outreach, because I believe dial-a-ride is an important aspect of what we do. I do agree that we need to charge more for Dial-A-Ride, especially as we get into the public outreach. I want to make sure that there's probably questions to be asked of the public of, even though we've chosen the low fare rate, I want there to be options that the public can chime in on. Hey, would you charge more for certain aspects of our transit, i.e. Dial-A-Ride? So I definitely want that to come back before us, if we can review it before we go out to public outreach. But I guess at this point, is there any other questions from commissioners?
Chair, yes, I did want to revisit the contributions that the cities are being asked to pay. We've had that discussion for the almost 12 years I've been here, and we don't want to shake them down, but we do need to get sort of, kind of a fair assessment of what is owed by each city.
Do you want to, I had suggested to Commissioner Johnston that, you could direct the Yamaha County Transit Advisory Committee to make it a priority for them to be tasked with looking into what are the options for how you want to structure that. Because you could take, in the transit development plan, there's a couple different scenarios where you do it by population and, other things are in the formula and then how much you would charge. There's, you could factor in, I happen to just in this exercise, getting ready for this, I happen to look at how many registered vehicles there are in Yamaha County. They're active registered, not trucks and RVs, and there's about 54,000. And then I thought, well, the mode split in Yamaha County, where they look at, this is done through the census, where they look at how do you drive to work? Do you carpool? Do you walk? Do you transit? We're at 1%, which is very typical for rural areas. Portland's only 4%. Now that's all based on a survey. So there's different elements of a formula you could come up, whether it's registered cars that are registered in a certain city, population, you could have some factors and then come up with some kind of a formula. But I played with it, and the truth is, I don't know. I have a feeling it's a lot, if you don't have the federal, if you tried to do it or even with, like trying to look and say, what if we didn't have this much federal or whatever? But it's not that I've tried to ignore it. We've asked all the cities, and I will say this, that smaller cities, 3 or 4 of them who never paid have stepped up and are paying what they can. McMinnville has increased what their contribution was around 23, and they're up to 30, almost 32,000 that they contribute now. Newburgh has been pretty much staying the same at around 18. But like City of Lafayette, I think was it 5,000 this last?
Yeah, well, it's 47.50. So
$47.50.
we pay $1 per head.
Yeah. And so we've made a little bit of progress, but it's not gonna, I always was hoping that we could get to where all the local contributions took care of the match, at least the match amount for buses and service. We've solved some of that in this biennium thanks to the STIF funding, but.
So what's the total that we're getting from the cities?
I know Willow Minor is doing 1,000 now.
Yeah, I want to say, I don't know if I'm gonna have this number exactly right, but I think it's about, I have to take Grand Ronde out of it because they actually pay the most, but that's because they have a contract. So 35, 25, 110. It's close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
close
close
to
to, it's like 95,000, something like that. But I don't remember the exact number, but I
Total.
send it to you, total, from all of them, not counting Grand Ron, I think is around 80,000. So if you take what the county pays, what all the cities pay, what Grand Ron pays, and now we're getting a little bit of money from Washington County because of that, they're starting to give us, so it's probably getting up close to 300,000 from all the rest, It was only 100 for a very long time. So we have made some increases in that sense. Yeah.
The only other question that I had too was, can you repeat the UMO number, the collection system? How much was that going to cost annually?
We need to double, it was a per vehicle charge. And when
Okay.
when we were in the midst of it, I want to say I calculated it would cost us around 20,000 a
Okay.
year. But I need to check back in because I'm not sure if they're going to still give us the rate, assuming like all those partners and counting all of our vehicles. And so I'll bring that back when I bring the public outreach information.
The administration burden of this goes to
Well,
Transdev
It really
collection?
just all of the entities. No, it's just sort of added into our mobile technology, really. I
Okay.
mean, obviously you have the vendor.
Because if it takes another full-time employee.
Oh, no, no,
To-
no, I
or-
wouldn't do that. I would add this to the task. We're hiring someone who's helping with our mobile technology. We just went through the
Okay.
hiring process. So this would just be one more
Yeah.
component to our mobile
But
technology.
if,
system.
if we're gonna get $150,000-$200,000 and we're gonna spend
Yeah.
70, or 51 to $104,000 in order to implement this, the math really.
And those numbers did include an estimate for collection systems, by the
Okay.
way. So that 51 and that 104. Now, that was quite a couple years ago, and so I need to update that, but
Sure.
So what's the total ridership?
right now, it's actually gone up. From end of 2024, it was 204,000, 200, whatever I said, 204,000 at the last quarterly meeting, and I did bring this. If I can find it.
It's in this packet now.
No, it was my little chart for the board committee. Was it at the end?
204,000.
Anyway, it's
Right.
gone up. I would say we probably will, my guess is at mid-year, we may end up being closer to like 240 or 235, 240 at the end of this fiscal year. And prior to COVID, we were like 260, 280, somewhere in that range.
That's rides,
Yeah,
correct?
rides,
Okay.
yeah,
Rides.
rides, yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Are they coming back again? Is that what we're deciding to?
So my question for Cynthia is if she just needs direction from us today to go to community outreach or create that plan to bring it back to us and then go out to community outreach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
This
Committee's
isn't the
recommendation, I
plan?
agree with that.
This isn't that plan? I was under the impression that this is that plan, that low.
No, I'm just asking for your approval to go
No.
out to public outreach, and I will
Yes.
bring back the detailed public outreach plan. that
Okay.
tells- So so you can see the materials, here's what we're gonna go ask folks, here's the questions, all of that.
Got it.
But I would like you to, I don't know if you have to vote, but just to give me direction that we can move forward with the public outreach and that we'll continue to be fairless and that we'll be getting input both on service adjustments and the low fare policy scenario.
And we're on a biannual, Cynthia, so we're good to all through next year while we go through this process.
Yeah.
To be fairless.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm okay to have Cynthia go out for public outreach and create the plan and then come back before the BOC for a little fine tuning.
Same here.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Brandon.
Hey, commissioners.
Thank you.
So that was item F. That was our work session. Up next, we have G, which is our consent agenda. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Up next is H, old business. There's none. I is other business. I1 is consideration to approve a construction service contract between Yamhill County Transit, ARE and Blue Spruce Builders, Inc. for the Durham Lane Tenant Improvement Project in the not to exceed amount of $268,000 effective upon issuance of a notice to proceed through June 1, 2026.
Chair, I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Aye.
Are we good?
We won't do it in
Yeah.
unison as we normally do, so you can hear a little bit better.
No worries. We'll get through it. Item I2 is consideration of approval of grant agreement number JRP-27-34 between Yamhill County and the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission to fund the justice reinvestment programs in the amount of $1,291,224 effective upon full execution through November 30th, 2027.
Chair, I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I3 is consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Yamaha County and Washington County to assign maintenance responsibilities for 5 identified roads to a single county effective upon full execution through July 1, 2030 with automatic annual renewals. You guys have any is Mark there in the audience if you guys have any questions?
No questions.
Mark is here, but no questions from me.
He's here.
Okay, sounds good. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We are on to item I4, is consideration to authorize Public Works to purchase a 2026 Mower Max brush cutter with attachments from AtMax Equipment Company under the state government Sourcewell contract number 032525-AMX in the amount of $297,128.64. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item I5 is consideration of approval in the matter of adopting the employee handbook policy effective 14 days from the date of posting and repealing. Ken, you want to give us a little background on this?
Yeah, so the board approved this last week and we kind of did the scramble on the effective date. Unfortunately, it did not get posted in time to comply with the 14-day posting requirement. So that's why we've asked to rescind and approve this with the new language on the effective date. So we are looking at getting this posted in the next day or two, but just it's a safer way in case there's any delays or anything with it that we're still in compliance with the 14-day posting requirement.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I
Aye.
missed one. I'm assuming it's unanimous.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item I6 is consideration of approval in the matter of adopting the hiring procedures policy effective 14 days from the date of posting and repealing Board Order 25-346. I would make a motion to approve. Any further discussion?
No.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item I7 is consideration of approval in the matter of adopting the Veterans Preference Policy effective 14 days from the date of posting and repealing Board Order 25-347. I would make a motion to approve. Is there any further discussion?
None.
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to J, public hearings.
Sure.
Excuse me.
We have a
Yes.
walk on today from both of us, I think.
Correct. There are 2 letters in the packet regarding a letter to the governor regarding SNAP payments. Did you?
Did you?
Let me review it real quick. Hang on a second.
Would have come from Bailey
Correct.
to one email that had 2 attachments, I believe.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So to clarify, I did read Commissioner King's and I just read Commissioner Sterrett's. So go ahead.
Yeah, so this is an add-on item requesting, consideration of the letter. I don't have it in front of me, so.
Yeah, a letter to the governor requesting for her support or the state's support to support SNAP benefits as the government shutdown is in place. My letter and Commissioner Sterrett's letter are not all that different from one another. I don't know that I have strong feeling one way or the other. we went with your letter last time we did this.
Well, I would say that there is a big difference.
Okay.
I think we had a meeting with the Board of Directors,
Mhm.
and we heard from Commissioner Ben West, who really set the tone for how this was going to go. It was really not to piggyback on some of the political grandstanding that's going on from the governor's office. There have been numerous lawsuits filed against the federal government. Well, there's 13 times the Republicans have asked that this be voted on, and we're not getting enough Democrats to pass a clean resolution. So SNAP benefits, it's not a surprise. We're going to end on November 1st. So it's not a surprise that this was going to happen. A couple of things I want to point out is I don't think that we serve anybody by the political vitriol that is in your letter. And my letter is basically saying, we are looking at these benefits not continuing after Saturday. Would you consider, my recommendation was there's $138 million in the emergency board, and this is what it could be used for. There's between 1.82 and $3 billion in the rainy day fund. If this isn't a rainy day, I'm saying it's pouring. So what I'm suggesting is that there's a lot of political chest thumping going on both sides. Everybody's blaming everybody else. I'm looking at what we're asking the governor to do. Now, she has agreed to take $5 million from ODHS and to use this in terms of shoring up food banks and WIC. I will say that at our local government advisory council on Friday with OHA, there was information saying that there was enough WIC in ending fund balance to move to the end of the month with WIC, but that is limited, and we're not talking about SNAP. The other point I'd like to make at this juncture, which is why I'm trying to keep this from being a political vitriol to the governor, we're basically saying we urge you to use state resources to backfill the SNAP benefits until the issue is resolved. There doesn't need to be any kind of orange man bad, Republicans are bad. This is all, because of one political party. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to get the donkey out of the ditch. The donkey's in the ditch, and we're going to sit here and play politics like we're accusing the governor of doing. I'm asking for some help from the governor. She's given $5 million, which is a drop in the bucket, but we've got a lot of money sitting in that rainy day fund. And my recommendation is that be used at this time.
And I agree with you. I think that, I think if mine is more of a frustration towards the governor for not being more proactive into this than we already are, as we come into the last days. There's no orange man referenced in my, or I don't believe anything referencing, orange man or Trump or anything of that in my letter. So it really is a call to the governor to step up and help. And I agree with you. Feeding people should not be a political football here, and in your words is chest thumping. So I take this very seriously and would like you to consider mine. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable signing it because I think it's political and it's unnecessarily so. That's why I wrote a letter, which is basically saying, we need some funds and let's just get her done.
I'm going to chime in. I'm actually going to throw a third opinion in here and see if you guys would approve of it. Judging by the direction we are going, that we are getting traction with the state, even though 5 million is a pittance, would you both agree to see how this week goes and the remainder of next week to next Thursday, and then bring the letters back next Thursday, or do you want to do this today?
Well, $5 million is $5 million, but it's certainly, when you look at Oregon has got a usage of food stamps, which is third highest, and that is behind Louisiana. So I think we've got huge issues, not only with the error rate. We know it's a very high error rate. We've got a very high usage rate. We want to make sure the folks who should be getting fed are getting fed, and we're not just basically handing it out, like Halloween candy. But I will go with your recommendation, Chair, if you think that we do a wait and see.
I think $5 million is, I don't have the number in front of me. I was doing some of the math yesterday. That $5 million came out after I sent the letter to you guys. Off the top of my head, don't hold me to this, but it was something around $38 or from a receiver, from people, a person that receives SNAP. So it's really $5 million. That's political grandstanding from the governor. So to saying that I did something, and to your point, Commissioner Steris, it's not enough. So to wait a week, I think is, I ask why wait a week? I think we should be doing as proactive as we can when it comes to supporting our families that need support with feeding their families. So.
Okay.
Okay, well, I just want to jump in here regarding that dollar figure. SNAP was never designed to be fully feeding people. It was supposed to be supplemental.
I understand, but
to a budget. So I think everybody's feeling that. I think what we're looking at here is, do we want to say, okay, the governor is doing something, so we'll lay off, we'll pump the brakes. What I'm saying is we need money from the e-board, and we need the e-board to weigh in, and we need money from the rainy day fund to backfill this. I'm making a specific request with specific designated pots of money. And that is where I think my letter and your letter are different. And I'm staying apolitical.
sure, they are different in that aspect. And my stance on that is I don't really care where she gets it from. She knows where her budget is. I think your recommendation is great, but that's, we're in my opinion. So I would prefer, Chair, if we could send a letter today. I would prefer mine. I'll make that motion and my letter to the governor.
Okay. Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None for me.
Hearing
No.
none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. Is there another motion to be made?
Chair, I'll go along with your recommendation to wait a week. I would like to send a letter, but I think at this point we can maybe hold off.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so motion's been made to wait a week. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None for me.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes with 2 ayes. And I would recommend that nothing stopping us individually from writing letters and submitting them.
I'll be submitting my letter today.
Good point. Thank you.
And
And I'll submit one as well.
okay. I think it's just important, not to drag this out, but it's important to realize that after both letters came out, that the governor is making the right direction based on other letters that I think were submitted, even though it is a pittance. But again, we can all agree to write our own letters if we see fit. We're going to move on to, that was the walk-on. So we're to J now. And I'm going to open up the public hearing at...
Chair,
yes.
can we take a
Break
couple?
time?
Yeah.
5 minutes?
5 is good.
Okay. See you in 5.
So we have the next option for that. That's why we're. Okay. I did turn this.
All right, we're back. Is everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open up this public hearing at 11:28 on October 30th. And let me grab my paper here. Is there any abstentions by members of the board?
No.
None from,
Is there any objections to the jurisdiction of the board to hear the matter before it? I cannot see the audience, so I will rely on you guys.
I'm not seeing any.
Does any board member need to announce and state on the record the substance of any ex parte contact or site visits?
No.
None.
None from me. Ken, you want to read the statement?
Yes, thanks. Oregon law requires that persons who attend land use hearing must be advised of certain rights and duties before the hearing begins. First, with regard to the standards for approval, state law, ORS 197.797, requires that we list the applicable substantive criteria that must be met in order for the county to approve the application. The standards will be listed by the county planner in a moment as part of the staff report. Testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed towards the standards for approval. Second, the raise it or waive it rule. Under Oregon law, any issue that might be raised in an appeal of the county's decision in this matter must be raised before the record of this hearing is closed. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board based on that issue. Third, and this is directed to the applicant, under ORS 197.796, failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval, again with sufficient specificity to allow the county to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Finally, I will note that under Oregon law, and because this is the initial evidentiary hearing on this matter, any participant, and that is anyone who submits oral or written testimony during this hearing, may, before the record of the hearing is closed, request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The request must be made prior to the time that a chair announces that the hearing is closed.
Thank you for that. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The applicable approval criteria and standards include sections 402.04I, 402.07A, 1004.01, and 1202.02 of the Yamhill County Zoning Ordinance. Comprehensive plan policies may also be applicable. Staff report is as follows. The subject parcel is located in the exclusive farm use district, the EF40 zone. There is a single family dwelling, a temporary health hardship dwelling, and accessory buildings located on the lot, including a new shop building that is under construction. This new shop building is where the applicant is proposing the business office to be located and the home occupation to be operated from. The applicant notes that farm uses are also occurring on site in the form of Christmas trees and poultry raised on site. All of the surrounding lots are located in the F40 zone. Land use in the surrounding area consists of rural residential and commercial farm uses, predominantly in the form of hazelnut orchards, grass seed, wheat and hay fields, and livestock pasturage. Rural residential uses are present on 4 of the nearest lots, including the 3 adjacent lots to the south, southwest, and west. This cluster of 5 lots, including the applicant's lot, that are predominantly used residentially, are all roughly the same size, ranging between 3.75 acres and 5.5 acres. The applicant's lot is the largest of the lots in this cluster. The request is for the use of the shop building in conjunction with a loss mitigation business. The applicant describes the loss mitigation business as a 24-hour emergency service that responds to incidents that threaten the structural integrity, safety, or functionality of homes and commercial buildings. Typical loss mitigation services include water extraction and drying after flooding, leaks or burst pipes, fire and smoke remediation, mold detection and removal, odor control, board up and tarping to protect structures from the elements, structural drying and stabilization, and assessment and documentation of loss for insurance purposes. All of the above activities occur off-site. The applicant notes that there will be numerous types of equipment stored in the accessory building, including moisture meters, thermal imaging cameras, air scrubbers, dehumidifiers, water extraction units, ozone and hydroxyl generators, negative air machines, drying fans and air movers, infrared thermometers, data loggers, as well as protective personal equipment. Along with hosting the business office, the shop building will be used to organize and store work equipment, gear, and other material the applicant uses in the loss mitigation services listed above. And that concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you. The applicant there is in person. Is he representing himself?
Yes, Mr. Chair, he is.
All right, thank you. So I'd ask that Javier Cia come up. Good morning.
Morning.
Is there anything that you want to add for your applicant or your application?
Well, we are a water damage restoration company working 24/7. Emergency happen during night, day. We ready to dispatch, and basically we're now open, like working on the shop like 24/7. We just respond to emergency calls during the night or day.
Okay. Is that all you want to add for your application?
Well, the reason we build this barn is, like say on the application, is to storage my equipment, my trucks, vehicles, basically operate my business from that property.
Okay. If that's it, then we'll go ahead and ask for comments in support. And if I got these in order correctly, it should be John Olson is there. Name and address, please.
Good morning, John Olson. I'm a resident of McMinnville, Oregon. Good morning, I'm John Olson, and I am the president and CEO of the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce. The McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce stands in full support of JNS Restoration and their approved construction project in Yamhill County. JNS Restoration is a beloved local business known for their integrity, professionalism, and deep commitment to their community. They are the kind of business that defines what it means to do right, not only by their customers and employees, but by their community as well. JNS consistently gives back, not because they have to, but because they genuinely care about the people and community they serve. Their reputation for excellence and service led to their well-deserved recognition as the 2025 McMinnville Business of the Year, an honor that reflects the respect and admiration that they have earned from their peers and the residents of McMinnville alike. The Chamber supports our member and the Yamhill County Planning Commission's approval of this construction project. The expansion will enable JNS Restoration to better serve local residents and businesses in times of crisis, providing essential assistance when flood, fire, and other disasters strike. Javier and his family represent the very best of McMinnville's business community. They are resilient, compassionate, and community-minded. And so we, the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce, encourage all to join in us in supporting their continued growth and their mission to help those in need. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next on my list is Lisa Springer. Come on up.
Good morning,
Good morning. Name and address, please.
Lisa Springer, Lafayette, Oregon. And I work for the Seha family for JNS Restoration and Reconstruction. And I have done so as a marketing and an office admin person for a little better than 2 years now. And I can just say that in the time that I have worked for them, the office site has been in a neighborhood in McMinnville and has been since 2019. And there have been no issues whatsoever with their neighbors. Everybody has gotten along. And it is probably very concerning to have all of the disruption that came with them putting together their property in the way that they want to use it. And, but I think that all the neighbors involved will find that once the dust settles, they're going to have one of the very best neighbors they could have. And most of the work, virtually all of the work that they're concerned about isn't done on site. It's all off-site stuff. How often we get called in the middle of the night? Very, very little. They have a couple of daughters, one a little younger than 20, one a little over than 20. They're now not on site. One has been deployed by the National Guard and the other is in college. So there's probably going to be a whole lot less traffic because that age of person, they're both not on site anymore. So there's going to be not nearly the fuss that people are concerned about. And thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on my list, I have Myra Horta. Name and address, please.
Yeah.
Myra Horta, and I live here in McMinnville. And I represent M&H Oregon Construction. So we're just the general contractors that Javier Ceja hired to help him build this barn. And we're just here to support him and just clarify any misinformation that we might have missed probably in the application. And we're just trying to help him out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the fourth and I think final one that we have in support is Neri Rosales. Name and address, please.
Neri Rosales from McMinnville, Oregon. Well, today we're gathered here on the for Javier Ceja trying to get the land of use for his property. A lot of the work that he instills throughout his company is typically, in a different area and stuff. As other people have mentioned, I know there's been probably kind of like a lot of movement and what do you call it? Traffic throughout the area, but as any construction area, there's got to be movement until everything's all finished out. I am with the M&H Oregon construction team. Sorry if I didn't clarify that earlier, but yeah, we're just kind of here trying to see if we can get the process going for him to finish up and finally settle everything down so that everything kind of go back to its formal piece that they have had in the past. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. There any other in the audience that have testimony in support?
One more.
One more?
Maybe two.
Come on up, name and address.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Desiree Lundeen. I'm a proud resident of Yamhill County, and I live at 6051 Northwest Poverty Bend Road in McMinnville. As some of you know, I have a bit of an understanding of land use and an understanding of when individuals come to planning or they come to the board and they're seeking some sort of development, that a main concern throughout that process is getting comments from neighbors, taking those concerns seriously. And when you are able to mitigate those concerns through denying the application or applying conditions of approval that make sense is a way forward. I also know that when a docket comes before you, there are clear rules that you are looking at. There are standards that you're looking at to judge that particular part of development. And I know that the planning department, as well as the commissioners, do a very good job trying to keep the focus on those approval points. And that would be my hope with this, is that when you look at this, you're setting it against the standards and provisions spelled out in our ordinances and in state statute. I know sometimes that development can create hard feelings between neighbors. I know that sometimes there's concerns about views. There's concerns about things that are not under the purview of this body and that you're not able to adjudicate or place guardrails in. So my hope was that you will look at this application under the rules that you have agreed that you can look at this application under, and find that this is an application that should absolutely be approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one other. Name and address, please.
My name is Jose Lopez, and I live on Han Creek, here in McMinnville. One of the things that I do is, I know Javier for many years, and he's always up to do the right thing. He's always worried about his curb appeal and his other property that he had, which I don't think it'll make any difference in the current one he's working on. He went and called me several times for advice and many things that I think is okay for let the process happen. And he'll be surprised how good of a neighbor he's gonna be. And I'll just say he'll take his shirt for anybody. And Javier is a good person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. We're going to move on to the appellant's case. Is there any appellant?
Chair?
Yes.
That, before, I just want to, if you want to call for any testimony online, that was everyone in the room. I don't know if there's anyone who signed on Zoom that also.
I appreciate that. Anybody online, raise your virtual hand, and I can't see that, so I'll rely on you guys.
Not seeing any.
Yep, not seeing any.
All right. All right, moving on then. Is the appellant present? Come on up, name and address.
Still morning? Yeah. Good morning. My name is Andrew Stamp. I'm a land use attorney in Lake Oswego. My address is VF Law, 6000 Meadows Road, Suite 500, Lake Oswego, Oregon, 97035. I'm here representing Larry and Heidi Goodrow, who are neighbors. They live at 10450 Northeast Equestrian Drive, which is kitty corner to the subject property. So I know that Yamhill County's had a lot of home occupation issues come up lately, including the big case Voigt versus Yamhill County that went to the Oregon Supreme Court. I want to talk about that because that's changing the standards really for how these cases get evaluated. One of the things that case said, and just to remind you that that's the case with the Grange Hall. You know, some people call it a hotel and some people call it a farm dwelling that has units in it for short-term occupancy. But in any event, what the Supreme Court said there was that one of the conditions of a home occupation is that it shall be operated in a dwelling that's allowed in the zone or a building normally associated with uses permitted in the zone for which the property is located. Well, the types of dwellings that are allowed in the zone currently would be a farm dwelling, which requires an $80,000 test. So we don't have that here. There is apparently a small farm use of Christmas trees going on, but certainly not enough to generate 80,000 income. There's been no effort to show that in the record. And the building that was built is not a building that's normally associated with the uses permitted in the zone for which the property is located. So that's a substantial problem because this building, although they got it approved as a barn, really isn't a barn. It doesn't have anything to do with the agricultural uses on the property. It was built specifically for a home-occ, and that's not the type of building that's allowed in the zone. So I think that is a huge problem. And I think, home occupations is one of the hottest topics in Oregon law right now. I'm somewhat surprised that FOIC isn't here today because that's been a point of emphasis for them as well as for Thousand Friends. I don't think the building is of the size that would meet the criteria for an accessory structure or a building that's customarily provided in conjunction with farm use. It's not incidental and secondary as defined in the zoning code. It's much bigger than the residence. So for all those reasons, I don't think you can approve this application. But even if you're inclined to do so, one of the things I think is highly problematic and unusual for a home-occ is to have a 24/7 operation. There's numerous standards that require that to be analyzed. There's the unreasonable interference standard, 215-448, 1 Delta. There's the compatibility criteria in your conditional use standards. That's 120202 sub F. There's the substantially impairs criteria, which is 120202 sub D. And the word impair means to make worse, diminish, or quantity value. I think it's highly unusual. I've never seen a home-occ that was 24/7. And in fact, every home-occ I've ever been approved, that I've seen approved, including the ones I've gotten approved, had hours of operations attached to them. And typically what you see is 7 to 7 or 7 to 5, or something like that, 8 to 5, or something reasonable in the morning to early evening. And partly that corresponds with noise ordinances, which typically have different noise ordinance criteria for nighttime operations versus daytime operations. And so usually, I think if you are inclined to approve this, you should make the dispatch, the 24/7 dispatch ought to be off-site and not on the subject property, because I don't think there's any way to justify that under these criteria. One of the other problems, and by the way, before I forget, I meant to request to keep the record open because this is the first evidentiary hearing as Mr. Friday noted, so I do want to keep that record open. Recently, I'm going to put some photos in the aerial photographs in the record, and recently there was pavement put on. I don't have an exact number, but I would say there's probably 1/3 of an acre of impervious surface now. I don't know if there's been, I'm not aware of any drainage plans that have been submitted, but I did see on these aerial photographs, I saw drains, which means the water is getting channelized and carted off-site in some way, shape, or form. And that really needs to be analyzed under the code, because Oregon law doesn't allow a landowner to divert drainage to an area where it previously did not flow. And one of the things that worries me about this case is, having been to the site, I noticed it's very flat and it doesn't have good drainage. And from the neighbor's perspective, having a big 6,500 square foot building on top of the other buildings that already exist on the site, and I don't know if it's 1/3 of an acre, but somewhere around there, of impervious surface, I think that's highly problematic and needs to be analyzed. And the criteria, all the same criteria that I talked about earlier: unreasonable interference, compatibility, substantial impairment. Stormwater would fall under any of those criteria. So there hasn't been any analysis that, and I would, if I was representing the applicant, I'd tell them to take this application back and provide a drainage analysis, hydric analysis to show what the time of concentration is and how that's changed and where the water's going and how it's going to affect the neighbors. Another thing that's defective in the application is state law has a 5-employee limit, and that's been interpreted to say 5 employees on site. It doesn't mean 5 employees in the company. You could potentially have 30 employees in the company, but if you can only have 5 of them on your home occupation site. But what that generally requires is it requires the applicant to explain who the 5 employees are, if not by name, by position. You say, well, the president's here, the secretary is here, the administrative person is here, whatever. And that hasn't been done in this case. And I think that, if that were to go up on appeal, that would be a reason for a denial or a remand. And part of the reason for that is that what I've noticed on representing people that have these types of home occs and also, being opposed to them on occasion, is they tend to creep in size. They start out small, but within a few years, they've got more employees and more vehicles, and they tend to outgrow their sites. And when you have those limits, one of the things you're trying to do here, one of your code criteria for home occupations says that the applicant is supposed to identify the nature of the proposed home occupation and specify that in the application. The reason you do that is so that you have a baseline that so we're approving 5 vehicles, 5 employees, and that way when it has 30 employees and 25 vehicles on the site, that the county has a way to enforce that. And so none of that kind of information has been provided. Moving on, one of the other criteria is traffic. The code is 100401 sub J. It basically says that the home occupation shall not generate traffic beyond what normally occurs in the zoning district. From our measurements, which aren't, we didn't put tube counts down, but we have a camera that kind of records everyone that's going by. And what we saw was 37 trips a day as the highest. That doesn't happen on all days, but that was the highest amount of traffic. A typical residence would have 10 trips. And this is geared towards beyond what normally occurs in a zoning district. And there's no evidence in the record right now to say what kind of trips are associated with uses in the zoning district. And I think from a technical standpoint, without that information, there's no basis for drawing a conclusion about traffic. We understand that the business has 3 marked vehicles right now, but we don't really have any evidence in the record showing how many vehicles there are. And that's a deficiency in the application. The application at one point says that they would have clients on the site, and in other portions of the application, it says there will be no clients visiting on site. If you are inclined to approve this application, you should add a condition of approval to say that no clients will be are allowed to come to the site, because that's what the applicants represented. And another one of the standards in the home occupation rules that you've adopted is sub H. It's all in 100401, and this particular criterion, sub H, requires that there be no visible evidence of the conduct of a home occupation. And generally, the way you deal with that is to put a site obscuring fence up and to store your vehicles inside. But that proposal, I don't see any kind of proposal for a site obscuring fence, and I don't see any requirement to store marked vehicles inside. But those should be conditions of approval that should be added to if an approval is made. Another one of the home occupation criteria is the sub I, which talks about noise, vibration, glare, fumes, odors, electrical interference. And generally speaking, that requires an applicant to produce a noise study. Now, in this case, the applicant says that the noisy operations will take place off-site or within a controlled environment. And I don't know what a controlled environment, I assume that meant inside the accessory building. But we don't have any information in the record as to the insulating properties of that building. You know, I've been involved in many home occs where we had to get a noise and acoustics engineer and actually measure that. In this case, the building's only 30 foot from the property line of a neighbor who's here today and will testify. But, you know, if that's just a regular pole building that's marginally insulated or uninsulated, noise inside of that building will go out. You know, we'll still hear it outside the building, and therefore it needs to be evaluated with a noise study. This is particularly true if you're going to have 24/7 operations, because noise standards, including the standards that you have in your code, typically evaluate noise differently at night than in the daytime. Noise at night is much lower in order to protect people who are sleeping. All right, so I tried to go through that as quickly as possible. And I'd like to say, finally, with a little bit of policy gloss on this, you know, the original home occupation law was it was called the cottage industry law, and it was intended so that people that could start small businesses with the idea that they'd either have a very small business with not many employees and operate out of their home or in a little, you know, accessory building. And that would either do that until they got big enough to get enough capital to move to a site, off-site, or they would just keep it very small. These contractor businesses are tough because they do make a lot of noise when they come and go, when they load their vehicles. I've represented contractor businesses, and I always find them very difficult to get home occupation permits for, to meet these standards that we're talking about. It's also tough for them because the law tends to want to push them into urban industrial areas, which they don't always need urban industrial amenities. Like, they don't need big sewer hookups. They don't need urban water. All they need is a place to park vehicles typically, and to rally their employees and to go off site and store their equipment and materials. So these are the kind of uses that you'd think would be great for rural industrial zones. That's probably the best place to put a contractor business, because, you know, the septic system would be for toilets and things like that. You don't need big septics. You don't need lots of water. Unfortunately, most places, including Yamhill County, doesn't have much rural industrial land. So, you know, we've done some studies in the context of applications about how much industrial land you have, and it's a pretty low number, in part because the only land that you zoned rural industrial was land that already had rural industrial on it when you first zoned your land in conjunction with Senate Bill 100 in 1975-ish. And so for that reason, you know, if I could make a plug for these types of uses, it would be to encourage the county to expand the opportunities for rural industrial uses. Because that way you don't have these neighbor problems. You got places where these types of businesses can go and buy relatively inexpensive land and put these business and expand on those properties. With that, that's all I've got. Is there any other questions you might have? All right. And I'm going to invite my client up.
I do have one question. The 37 trips that you stated, Andrew, is that all of the neighbors, or is that just for the applicant's property?
That was from that particular property. And, you know, the reason that's important is that a typical residence, I'm sure you've heard the statistic before, typical residence is about 10 trips a day. And so this, you know, this use is generating quite a few more trips. Now, we do have some data on what the other neighbors use. I think over the course of 10 days, the farm use that's further on generated, I think, 26 trips over the course of 10 days. The neighbors are producing just a handful of trips a day. So much less, actually much less than the 10. And that you typically find that in rural areas where the further you got to drive to something, the more carefully you plan your trips, and so you make less trips. So in
Did
this
you say
case,
you
though,
could discern, did you say you could discern of those 37 trips, whether they're personal, ag related, or related to the restoration company?
what we could, no, we know that they were coming from the subject property. What we can't distinguish, though, is if those were, we could tell if it was a marked vehicle trip, but we can't tell if the vehicle is unmarked, we couldn't tell the purpose of the trip. So if it was someone just lived there, unrelated to the business, but the applicant hasn't really made any effort in his application to distinguish trips between the home occ or the residents, or to say who are employees and who are just people who live here who are not part of the business. I understand that some of the people that live there are part of the business, but there has never been a breakdown. And I think that's a critical error that would be easy to exploit in an appeal to LUBA or something like that. And so that would be a recommendation for either a denial or send it back down to the planning department to have them do some more work on it.
Have you made a determination as to whether these are construction-related trips?
No.
So there's ongoing construction. You're saying there are 37 trips aggregate daily, roughly average, while there is ongoing construction, but there hasn't been any differentiation as to whether it's employee, residential, or construction.
So I'll let my client speak to that because they're the ones that took the data. And so I'd rather hear you have them explain that, what they know or don't know, rather than give you that information secondhand and have it possibly be wrong. So.
And do you know time of day of that? Is that during the day? Is
Yes,
that
these
at
were
2 in the
all
morning, or
well,
can you?
for that they have. One of the things that they told me is that they had more trips leaving than coming, and that suggested that there's trips at night that they're not capturing because the camera doesn't auto record at night because it doesn't see things. It's a motion-based camera, and if things at night don't necessarily pick up from that distance. So the numbers are on the low side. We just don't know by how much.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I'm going to call up, if I have these in the correct order. Number 1 is going to be Melissa Winkleman. Name and address, please.
Melissa Winkleman, 10445 Northeast Equestrian. Morning.
Morning.
Not quite morning. I'm really nervous, sorry. I would like to start out by saying that I have no personal grudge or agreement with Javier and his family. They're friendly, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my husband and myself. He could not make it here today. We admire their work ethic. We admire their entrepreneurial spirit, but their desire to grow their business should not be at the expense of all of our neighborhood. We feel a little bit snookered as far as where the building was located. The original county map that we were provided showed a different orientation of the building. It was described as a pole barn, and it was further away from our residents. Where it is located now, it's a massive building, and there's incredible watershed that will be directly affecting our property, as well as the pavement that they've incorporated that is immediately adjacent to our property. There was quite a bit of soil displacement, and so we are not sure how that's going to affect our well system in the coming summer, or if the water will drain towards our property. What will the effect of that be as far as flooding or whatnot? Our other concern would be as far as the road use. This is not a typical road. It's a 1-lane gravel road. It's a farm road, basically. And so the dust this summer has been incredible. I can tell you, you can't leave your windows open. Over the winter, as cars, it's a one-lane road, so as cars would come from opposite directions, one car would be required to pull into the grass on either side, so there was mud and furrowing of the land on our property and also the Goodrose property. And so also there's been quite a bit of additional noise, as you can imagine, where the parking for their building is located now is immediately outside of our house. So you look out the window and it's heavy equipment, their logoed business vehicles as well as private vehicles. I've planted a row of trees, but I mean, it takes a while for them to grow. I believe according to the county stipulation, there's supposed to be some sort of fencing or landscaping that would help block that and mitigate noise and line of sight. So anyway, those are our main concerns, the road and noise. And anyway, I thank you for your time.
I have one question before you go. The truck traffic and the noise that's happening around the building, would you attribute most of that to the construction right now, or do you feel like it'll still be there afterwards?
I don't know. We'll have to see. There's been quite a bit with construction from before daybreak until dark. They're very hardworking people, but we'll have to see. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Larry Goodrow. Name and address, please.
Name is Larry Goodrow, 10450 Northeast Equestrian Drive in McMinnville. I am neighbors to the Sajaws. Again, as Melissa stated, I have nothing. It's nothing personal. They're nice people. They obviously they're working hard and they're trying to better themselves and their family with the business that they have. And so they want to clear that up for the record. So it's more of just facts as Mr. Stamp has indicated earlier for us. Our belief and our feeling and through our interpretation of state and county laws is that we want that property as to be farmland as it was designated to be, and not to have a larger sprawling commercial business on that piece of property. And as being a business owner that I am myself, I understand that you don't want your business just to sit flat. If you're not growing, you're dying. And the business should get larger as it grows. So with the tenacity that they have and their aggressiveness in, doing things the right way as discussed by the city of McMinnville here today, that business is only going to grow as time goes on. And that will be at the detriment of the neighbors and the agricultural community as well. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have none. Thank you. Next is Heidi Goodrow. Name and address, please.
My name is Heidi Goodrow, and I live at 10450 Northeast Equestrian Drive. My husband Larry just spoke. I can add a little bit more to the traffic you're asking about. At this point in time, we have no way to differentiate what is construction versus daily life versus business. A lot of the people fulfill those same positions. So to say that some of it would clear up afterwards, we don't know. It has been extreme. The road is, as mentioned, private, narrow, single lane farm road. It is not built to sustain this type of traffic or additional. There will, even once the construction is finished, there is a temporary hardship that has been approved on their property, which we are all in agreement for. The hardships are a good reason. But that will also increase traffic once that is fulfilled. That has not been yet. So that will be in addition to what's already there right now. That's going to add on top of it. What were the other, I forget what the specifics that were being asked about traffic. Does anyone have a question? more
Time of
the-
day, that most
It's
is.
full hours of the day. I'm a night owl, so I'm up late and there are cars that go by 10 PM, midnight. I will hear cars coming and going from there. So what it's related to, I don't know, but there is additional traffic. Let's see, trying to think what else. Yeah, any other questions about the whole thing for me?
No.
No. Thank you. Is there anybody else signed up for opposition testimony? Anybody online, raise your virtual hand.
I don't see any.
Okay. That brings us to our public agency reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The McMinnville Fire Department responded to the staff referral by stating, quote, that the owner has agreed to provide firefighting water on site for this commercial project. The application is now conditionally approved, end quote. The deputy fire marshal also noted that he, quote, will continue to work with the developer to get the right valves and connection points, end quote. The county sanitarian also responded by stating that there are no conflicts with their interests and that a permit was issued for a septic system that included sizing for business use. The Soil and Water Conservation District also responded to our referral by informing the applicant of their responsibility to comply with the Yamhill Water Quality Management Area Plan and to control for any noxious weeds that may be present on the property. And that concludes the public agency reports.
Thank you. So we have a rebuttal by the applicant. If he'd like to come up and say a few last words, it's up to him. I can't see the audience, so I'm assuming he's
Just gathering some thoughts, I think.
okay.
Well, a few things I want to clarify on my notes. Everything like reroute the water from the roof from my building. It's been permitted. It's been inspected. All my drainage from my building. Pretty much, I want to be a good neighbor. I don't want to be, headache for my neighbors. So we just want to take this business to the next level, try to make a living and basically, finish up this project. We will try to do our forever home here. And that's the reason we purchased this property.
Any?
Thank you. And Ken, you want to give us staff recommendations?
Yes, because we've had a request to leave the record open, I have a schedule here to propose, and if it's acceptable with the Board of Commissioners, then I just need someone to say so moved. So the open record motion would be, the record shall be left open until 5 p.m. on November 6th for all parties to submit written testimony or evidence to the Planning Department at 400 Northeast Baker Street. The record shall be then be open until 5 p.m. on November 13th, 2025 for all parties to submit to the Planning Department written rebuttal of what was submitted during the first open record period. The record shall then be open for the applicant only to submit final written argument with no new evidence until 5 p.m. on November 20th, 2025. And at that point, the record shall be closed. The Board of Commissioners shall then reopen the hearing at 10 a.m. on December 4th, 2025 in room 32 of the Yamhill County Courthouse at the point of staff recommendation.
So moved.
And would that first open record be any issue, like new issues?
can submit evidence.
Yeah, on any topic.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We good?
So I have.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
Oh,
I think Commissioner Starrett has a question.
just a quick,
Okay.
would now be the time for me to ask specific questions about what was permitted in terms of what you have permitted in terms of the building, or is that something we need to wait?
We could get the permits and put them into the record.
Okay, thank you.
All right, motion's been made. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that will take us to the close of hearing at 12:18 p.m. Pacific time. Is that the correct time? I'm looking at my laptop that's on your guys' time. Yeah, was that good? Good time?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That closes up the public hearing portion. We're back to our formal session, and we are on to our announcements.
Oh, forgot about that part.
Commissioner King, you want to kick us off, or?
Sure thing. Let's see here. A Family Place Gala. Commissioner Johnson was in attendance as well. I was able to supply a package for that alongside with some friends at the Blind Pig. Total raised so far that their count is 157,000, but there's still a really big shortfall. They're hoping to get to 165,000 by the end of next week. I've had a lot of concern about the Yamhalis Trail, especially with the amount of public comment that we've had, and both written and here in person, along with countless amounts of constituents stopping and talking to me while I've been out in public. So I just want to make sure that we're being diligent about that and really hearing our constituents' voices there. And I'm just concerned with how fast it is moving. We talked quite a bit about SNAP, and approximately 70% of these guys are kids and seniors and individuals with disabilities. So I really want to be paying attention to that. I was raised in this type of work. I went to my grandparents had a church that I spent a lot of time at. And they fed over 800 people out of their house. So this work is, like, as I said earlier, is very near and dear to my heart. We talked about the fair policy, worked on that quite a bit this week with Kevin and Cynthia. Been meeting with several wineries about workforce concern. Jessica Beach as well. I think she's going to reach out to you guys about, and maybe she already has, potential funding or the option to go back to the state, or with the governor's budget that we currently have, something I'm hoping to pay pretty close attention to. And attended as Commissioner Starrett said, the AOC Board of Directors meeting. Always get a lot of really good nuggets out of those meetings. So I'll leave it there for today. We've had a long one.
Can somebody catch Ken Friday for me? Go ahead, Commissioner Starrett.
Okay. Do you want to
Oh,
talk?
he's back. To follow up on Commissioner King's comment about the TSP, have you guys landed on a date? Is it December 11th at the Kent Taylor Civic Hall?
90% sure it's going to be December 11th. All I'm waiting on is IT, and Shane's working with their IT person. Just sent the question out yesterday. So it's either going to be the 4th or the 11th. I'm pretty sure that I got a verbal okay from their IT that they would assist us. I just want it on an email, kind of confirming that before I start sending out a notice. But as soon as I get that, I'm going to post it on our website and post, the information that we will have for the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sterrett.
All righty, thank you. The CPRD meeting on Thursday, they continue to talk about the Ewing Young Bridge, and they're going to follow a recommendation to do outreach to the community. So they're going to be having some open houses, one on the 19th, one in person, and the other one will be virtual on the 20th, to get some input not only on the Ewing Young Bridge and recommendations. They're hoping to work with the county on that in terms of the ability to move forward with that, but also some of the other projects that they have in the hopper. Affordable Housing Corporation talked a little bit about how they've coupled the CET grants from Newburgh with the Oregon Healthier Homes, and were able to help, I believe, 10 different families. On the All Creatures Great and Small front, we have a couple of animal stories I wanted to share with you. We did receive a public comment regarding an aggressive dog in the West Valley that has been at large and unprovoked was attacking people and their pets. So I reached out to Captain Whitlow, who has been really great about dealing with some of the dog control concerns that we have. And what we're doing at this particular point, and I do want to thank him for reaching out to Polk County. They do have a service that will live trap the dog and then be able to check for a microchip, and then also any kind of medical issues. Our concern right now is we don't actually have someone who's going to be able to take the aggressive dog. That contract, that piece ended. So we'll be working on that piece, but we have that in the hopper. And I do want to thank folks for bringing that to our attention. The other thing and also Captain Whitlow has been great about this. One of the things I want to also call out is we have a code enforcement officer who has been, I believe, going above and beyond the call of duty. And I wanted to call out a situation that happened this week. Nestor Martinez Zarzosa is our code enforcement officer, and he reached out to me and he said, in the process of doing a code enforcement action where I'm working with a property owner outside of Newburgh to clean up, I noticed that there were many cages of metal cages of cats that were in pretty bad conditions in terms of large amounts of fecal matter, and they were outside. He convinced the property owner to relinquish the cats, and he called around to try to find somebody, one of the agencies, one of the rescues, who'd be able to take the cats. And unfortunately, they were all full. But he reached out to the ARC Rescue in Newburgh, which is right there on the main drag, and Cassie Wild said, yes, we'll take them. I went there yesterday, and I want to say that Cassie is doing, is doing God's work, because nobody wanted these cats. They're in quarantine right now. They belong to us in terms of they're our responsibility, but she was willing to take them. So I would like people to follow suit. I went and made a personal donation. I hope people will go by the ARC and at least kind of mitigate some of the costs that this is going to have. And also, there are lots of cats that can be adopted. And she didn't complain. She didn't say no. She just took these animals, and we're very grateful for the work that she's doing. Also, TVFNR has let us know that they have made the purchase for the property for the Rural Station 22, which has been a long time coming. We continue to work on the behavioral health grants that Oregon Health Authority wants us to sign, and we are holding firm on not signing them at this point, but it's an ongoing situation. We're going to be addressing this at a meeting on the 7th. Also, the Local Government Advisory Committee to OHA met, and we addressed some of the issues regarding WIC. There is money in an ending fund balance through the end of November. And the other rate increases that we talked about had to do with the CCO, which typically gets rate increases of about 3% to 6%. It's now getting 10.2, which is much needed, since our CCO is one of the few that has been able to keep their head above water. Also talked about the school-based health services and what they were doing in Wasco County. Very impressive. They have a program called What's Strong with You with at-risk kids. Where are we here? I'll stop there. But, oh, Housing Authority, Board of Directors meeting. Stratus is on definitely full speed ahead, ready to be completed and start taking folks in about December. They're ahead of schedule. And also really shout out to Vicki Weibargen, who is the executive director, who's already talking about the next project. And I think after what they've going through, it kind of reminded me of a pregnant woman who just went through labor, and then she says, I'm ready to have another baby. So I have great admiration for what's going on at the Housing Authority and also the Affordable Housing Corporation. We had a great meeting, and I think that's it.
Thank you very much. So I'm online because we're in Indiana for nationals for FFA, and I will update quite a bit next week. Right now, we're still going through the award ceremonies for today, and there's only been a few. The rest will kick off late tonight, so I'll update more next week. Chat with the Chairs moved from November 6th to November 7th at 6 p.m. at the Sheridan Dairy Queen. Just to let everybody know, it will not be on its normal day on Thursday. Updated on the TSP update and possibly where the new location and time will be, and then Ken will get us confirmation on that. Saturday coming up, the Sharamina Food Bank is going to have an open house at 4 p.m. Newburgh City County dinner reminder next Wednesday on the 5th, 6 p.m. And I guess down the lines of the letters that we were proposing to write to the governor and the state, I just want to ask us all in our own ways. I know what I do for our local food bank. I do it all through the year. The biggest thing that we do as a family is donate a lot of protein, a lot of meats, especially during fair time. I'm gonna personally, I'm putting together a truckload of food to donate hopefully by next week. But I just ask that our businesses or individuals at whatever capacity they can. I've had other people reach out to me, whether it's $50 or $500, asking where to go with it. I know what I do personally is YCAP. YCAP covers all of our food banks in our region, and if you're looking for simplicity, YCAP would be the easiest at the food bank. If you do live in a city and you want to be personal about it, then just reach out to your local personal food bank. I would just ask all of us through the next few weeks here as we progress through some of the federal issues that we're going through, and really the state seeing if they're going to step up more than the $5 million that we just reach out and help in whatever way we can. Lots of kiddos out tomorrow for Halloween, so everybody just please be safe. And that wraps me up for my announcements, and we'll see you guys all next week. And is there anything further that you guys want to add, Ken or Christian?
Mr. Chair, I just remind the board that I won't be present at next week's board session, but I do plan to attend virtually. I'll be starting Wednesday through the balance of next week and the following Monday.
Anything else, Ken? All right. Gonna close it out at 12:31 p.m. Thank you all very much. See you next week.